today is Wednesday, January 18th, boys and girls. And sometimes I do feel like a spy, in the back behind the enemy lines, hiding as a broker. And when I was selling my truck and trailer, after spending 17 years behind the steering wheel of a semi-truck, a friend of mine says, "You want to be a freight broker?" And I said, "Yeah, why not?" And he says, "Okay, well, actually, you cannot be a broker since you don't have any of your own clients, but you can be a sub agent under me in a big logistics company, and there's like 10 people above me." And I said, "No, well, that's fine." I said, "All I want to know is, can I, in theory, make 1 million rubles a year?" And he was a bit confused by the question, but then he says, "Well, in theory, in the perfect world, yes, you can make 1 million rubles a year." And it's been 2 months since I've been sub-agenting or brokering, and I'm happy to report that so far I made 344 Canadian dollars. I still cannot believe it. It's, I cannot believe my great fortune. And somebody recently suggested I ask for a government pension, because turns out in Canada you can start getting a pension at 60, whereas the regular age is 65, but you can get a smaller pension but at 60. And I said, wait a second, I made $344 in 2 months. So I'm pretty sure there's, people in a worst position that the freaky government of Trudeau can help. And so I said no. But joking aside, today's video is about 3 major reasons for some clashes or tensions between brokers and truckers. And number one is poor communication. I know probably this topic has been mentioned many times before, but as a guy who was trained to send in daily updates before 9 a.m. if I'm under a load, I was trained to do daily updates via email or text, but mostly email. Okay, leaving, TA in Dansville, New York, ETA to the ship to the customer is so and so, right? And even when brokers did not ask me for it, every morning or sometimes at night, at the end of the day, I would send them an update. Like if it's the end of the day, I would say, "Hey, ended the day in TA truck stop in Dansville, New York. We'll start trucking again at daylight tomorrow." And so brokers I worked with very rarely had to bug me for location updates. But my first load, right, I moved that it was a power only with a trailer. So the first surprise was that the driver never told me when he was at the shipper. He never told me when he left. And of course, as a newbie spy broker, I didn't want to bug him, right? Because I know as a trucker, I never liked it when brokers would call me 10 times a day. And so I didn't want to bug the guy, right? And so I call him on the next day. Like basically everything went okay with the loading, and you're on your way to the consignee. And the guy says, "Well, I'm at my home. I had to shut down for 2 days to get my e-log up to speed." And when your load confirmation says, let's say you're supposed to load January 18th, right? And then you as a driver know that you have like 5 hours left on your e-log. Wouldn't it be prudent to let the broker know that after you load it, you're gonna spend 2 days at home. But this guy never did that, Whereas me, I would definitely do it, You definitely have to let brokers know because there's people waiting for the load. And yet, so many carriers, unfortunately, they don't do this, They don't care. Recent example, earlier this year, I published a video called My First Load of 2023 because I was very excited that this forklift, 97,000 pounds, is finally moving. And I had the carrier, and I touched base. They gave me a quote later in 2022. So I touched base with them. I said, "You guys okay?" Because I just heard from the shipper that the machine is ready. Let's say what was it? January 11th, and the carrier says, "Yeah, fine. I have my guy, like in Newfoundland. I have this other guy over here." So I send them a load confirmation. The pickup date clearly says January 11th, right? And so that was Wednesday, I think. Hold on, let me double check. Today's 18th. Yeah, 11th was Wednesday. And so Tuesday morning, I emailed the carrier just to confirm, are we okay to load tomorrow, January 11th? And this load, the big forklift, so 97,000 pounds, so they split it into two. The machine, so let's say 73, and the mast with the forks, let's say 25, 24, right? And so the guy was supplying an RGN and a step deck. And so I emailed him one day before, are we okay? Because he never told me anything, right? So he just signed accepted my tender, and basically it's the same as signing the load confirmation, so I know he's on board. And so one day before, I emailed him asking if we are okay, and to my surprise, the guy says, well, my step deck was stuck at the ferry in Newfoundland. There's been delays because of high waves, because you need to take the ferry between Newfoundland and Nova Scotia. And we lost 2 days. I said, okay, so when do you think you're gonna load? And he says, well, the main trailer, like RGN for the big machine, is coming to pick up something in I forgot where it was, but basically he was delivering in Pennsylvania, not too far from Ontario. But he says the step deck, so the RGN is on the mainland, but the step deck is stuck in Newfoundland. And so he says, well, we'll have to see in a couple of days. And my customer, the guy who bought this machine from, well, actually the buyer from my customer, starts, emailing me a couple of times a day, like, what's the update? He says, we've been waiting for this machine for 2 months. And so now we're delayed, but what's funny is that, I understand bad weather in winter can happen, right? But you have to tell me, right? Because you have to tell me, hey, I'm sorry, we're not going to make it on Wednesday. So instead, my experience the past 7 days, I'm emailing and calling the carrier to ask him for an update. I said, could you please let me know when your trucks are headed to the shipper? Nothing. So finally this morning I call him. I say, hey, so-and-so, have you had your coffee yet? He says, yes. I said, are you in good mood? He says, yes, always. Okay, so I said, can we get an update on the step deck and RGN? And he says, well, RGN is unloading today. This was like 9 o'clock my time, so I know it's 11 in Ontario or Pennsylvania. He says, yeah, RGN is unloading probably around 1 or 2 o'clock today. And I said, okay, after this he will go and get my load in Ontario, right? And I know this area, right? Like Pennsylvania, Erie, PA, near the Ohio line, so I know it's about 200 miles, 300 kilometers. It's not exactly around the corner. So I said, okay, let's give him time in the morning. I said, you okay? Loading 10 o'clock Thursday, tomorrow. And the guy said, well, yeah, that should work Thursday or Friday. But I said, what about the step deck for the mast? And he says, well, I'm waiting to hear from my driver, because he says if he was able to get on the ferry yesterday, he probably would be delivering today also, somewhere in Ontario, and then he can go and load your mast. But basically the whole week, it's been total lack of communication from the side of the carrier. And so that's number one. Number one problem, number one reason there's tension between brokers or agents and carriers, right? You have to tell me what's going on. I'm on your side, right? And number two, I would say not reading the fine print, right? So I post a load, and as a former trucker, I know how important it is to put down dimensions and weight. Unfortunately, some of these load boards, like LoadLink, Canadian stupid load board, they don't give you a lot of space in there, you know. I'd say I can put my name, my extension, my phone extension number, and then when that gets transferred to DAT, it doesn't show you full information, right? But still, it shows you something. I try to put at least the weight and like the most important dimension. Let's say I know, okay, if it's an RGN and if it's under 12 feet tall, okay, that shouldn't be a problem. But let's say this thing is like 13 feet wide, you know, so I would put like, say, I don't know, 73K LB, comma, 12 feet tall, right? And so a couple of guys call me, and the guy says, oh, what's the rate? Without anything, you know, hey, this is so-and-so from the company, this such and such company. But the first thing out of his mouth is, what's the rate? And so I tell him the rate, and I said, you can do 73,000 pounds, right? How many axles do you have? What kind of trailer? And the guy says, oh, no, we can only do 50,000 pounds. So why you didn't read the fine print? Why you didn't ask me, you know, what kind of trailer is required for this, you know, load? And then another guy asked him for a quote, because I thought he had the trailer, because he did quite a few like heavy loads. And this is going to Western Canada, right? So you have to pass through Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, all these good jurisdictions. And this guy, after he gave me the rate, and it was way higher than what other people gave me, and then we start chatting about his trailer and if he can scale it on 7 axles. And he says, well, actually, this goes through Manitoba. He says, we cannot scale that much in Manitoba. And I'm like, what? What's wrong with Manitoba? I never had any issues myself, you know, with my 55 or 60 ton trailer. And turns out this guy, he just has a 35 ton double drop, and his spacing, axle spacing, is 50 inches, but then he still has a flip axle, and that one is 54 inches, but he has 255 tires, you know, like the first number on the sidewall of the tire. That's how wide your tire is in millimeters. His tires are 255, should be 275, he's 255. And so he says, I know from experience, and he said, we just confirmed this, that we can only get 24,000 kgs on the last 3 axles in Manitoba, which is 52.8, so 52,800 pounds. So he cannot get 60 over there because he has very narrow tires and very small space between axles. You know, it should be 60, and you should have 275 millimeter tires. But anyway, so the guy did not read the fine print because I told him, hey, attention Canadian carriers, I have this load, origin, destination, weight, dimensions. The guy says, yeah, I want, $500,000, but actually, never mind, I cannot go through Manitoba with my trailer. And so that's problem number 2. So problem number 1, or reason for tensions between brokers and carriers, miscommunication or lack of communication. You cannot pick up a load on the date and you fail to tell me, that causes stress. And I may decide not to use you as carrier in the future. I can put some nasty notes on your account on our TMS saying, hey, caution, poor communication, shuts down for 2 days for e-log reset, never lets the broker know, stuff like that, right? Miscommunication. Number 2, not reading the fine print and not having the proper equipment. And number 3, starting each conversation with what's the rate. Now, it's kind of like funny because I remember I was in the same frame of mind when I was a trucker, right? So I didn't want to, I wasn't interested in anything besides what's the rate because, but at least I had the proper equipment. I would not otherwise call, let's say if it's, some 3-axle crane, that I know will never fit into my 26-foot well. So I did read the notes on the load that I see on the load board. But after I read the notes and I know that it'll work on my trailer, so I call the guy, and the first question out of my mouth was, what's the rate? So like, what's your budget, right? And now as a broker, I hate that question because many carriers are not like me, how I used to do it as a carrier. So a guy calls me this morning, just to give you an example. And again, hey, this is so-and-so, Jaspreet from, Indian truck lines. Okay? Or I see a load here posted from this town in Ontario to this town in Western Canada. I was wondering what the rate is. And this was like call number 5 or 6. I'm tired of arguing with them. Otherwise, I would ask, what kind of trailer you have? Can you scale this weight? So I say, okay, this is the rate. And the guy says, so it's a forklift, right? I said, yeah. And sorry, what's the weight? I said, well, it was on my posting on the load board, but I said, it's about 73,000 pounds. And the guy says, oh, sorry, we only can do 50,000 pounds. And the weight is clearly posted. I checked my posting. Maybe I forgot. No, I cannot forget because that's important, right? So I posted 73.5 KLB, 10 feet wide, 11 feet tall. And so the guy starts with a rate, but he doesn't have the equipment, right? And then another weird confrontation happened this morning. A guy calls me, very nice on the phone, gives me his name. He says, how is your morning? I said, fine. I'm calling about your load from, about this forklift again. Because the carrier I booked, right, he's late and he's not communicating with me. So now my customer is begging me to move this because they've been waiting for this machine for 2 months. And so now I have no choice but to post that load again, just as a kind of like as option plan B, in case my carrier that already has my load confirmation decides to totally, vanish into thin air, right? So I have to cover my butt. And so now people are calling me. So this guy calls me, nice on the phone, and that kind of like made me drop my guard. So I start talking him to like a regular human being, like we're two guys, drinking coffee at the table, right? So, and he says, I ask him what kind of trailer he has. It sounds like he knows what he's doing, been trucking a long time, independent. Okay. And then he asks me for, and then he says, so when is it ready to ship? And I said, well, it's actually, here's the story, it's ready, but I have a carrier that's already hooked up to this load on paper, but he's running late. His trucks are stuck because of the weather in Newfoundland. And so this guy cuts me off all of a sudden. He says, well, I'm not really interested in all these excuses. All I need to know is the rate. I'm like, holy moly, like, what the heck is going on? So, excuses, what excuses, I said, okay, the rate for the main machine is this. The main for the fall off load, the mast is this. And I could hear like he's scribbling, he's writing it down. I said, do you have any more questions, sir? And he says, no. I said, okay, have a good day, sir. And I slammed the phone down. I got really, upset with this guy. Like, he wouldn't even talk to me like normal human, Oh, excuses, broker excuses. I was just trying to explain to him the situation that, I have a carrier, so I cannot give you this load because I have a guy, but in case he runs late or disappears, I need a backup, right? And he's like, oh, I'm not interested in excuses. And guess what? 2 hours later, my phone rings, and this guy says, hey, this is Alex again. Like, what does this guy want, And he says, I'm sorry, I just wanted to apologize. I think I was a bit harsh last time we talked. And like, really? Okay. So now I'm feeling better. And it turns out the guy was in a bad mood because he was sitting in Texas. No, he delivered a load somewhere in the States, in the southern U.S. And he'd been talking on and off with this broker who promised him this load in Texas. And so he went to Texas after he delivered his load, let's say, I don't know, in Oklahoma or somewhere. He went to Texas and he spent the weekend there. And then Monday or something, when he calls the broker, they said that load is gone. So basically, this guy was so upset with brokers. So when he was talking to me, he assumed that I was the same type of a scumbag, But when he called me back, I wrote down his info. Wait, the guy has the guy has an extendable RGN, and he's based in Canada. And he says he's been trucking since like 99. So actually a pretty nice guy, because I caught him on a bad day. And so I got his phone number, his email, the name of his company, his MC number. And so I got myself a potential carrier. And that, of course, comes back to number one, quality of freight brokers is being nice, right? So when the guy was kind of like rude to me and didn't want to hear my excuses, that's all BS, broker excuses, just give me the rate. I didn't scream at him. I wasn't rude in return. I just gave him the rate and I said, have a good day, sir. And I just ended the conversation. But because I was still polite, he felt bad and he called me back and apologized, And that's how you do it. But again, just to sum it up, bad communication is reason number one that causes tensions between brokers and carriers. And by the way, this last example, right, when the guy was promised a load in Texas because the broker failed to communicate with the carrier, like it goes both ways, right? So carriers fail to communicate with brokers, brokers fail to communicate with carriers. Let's say the load is delayed and they keep lying to carriers, hey, yeah, it's gonna be ready like tomorrow, right? And they keep, because they don't want to lose the carrier. But it's a very bad, character's trait, when you lack of communication or failure to communicate. And then number two, what did I say? Not reading the fine print, not having the proper equipment. And last but not least, starting with the rate. And so now I have a list. I created a list of 5 questions and I called it carrier filter. So now if somebody else calls me today about this forklift load and says, oh, this is James from North Lentil Trucking, what's the rate on this one? I have 5 questions. If you're calling me, be ready to answer these 5 questions. Question 1, what load are you calling about? Because I want to know what kind of trailer you have, right? And which leads to question 2, what trailer do you have? Question number 3, can you legally haul question mark pounds? Like in this case, can you legally haul 73,500 pounds? Question number 4, do you have an annual permit for the jurisdiction where the load picks up? Like in this case, hopefully tomorrow, this guy picks up my forklift, and he never mentioned this, and I hope to God he does have Ontario annual permit, because Ontario can take a week to issue a permit, and I swear my customer's customer will have a heart attack if my carrier picks up the load and then says, oh, the Ontario permit has been ordered, now we wait. So having an annual permit for the jurisdiction where you're loading is super important because you can start trucking right away, right? So that's question number 4. And question number 5, when can you load? Like for example, now this forklift, it's a live load. It's ready to go. It's been ready to go since January 11th, right? So if you call me and then when I ask you this question and you say, well, I have a truck in Newfoundland, it's been stuck there for a month, but eventually gonna get out of there, and so you're loading near Toronto, so probably I can load somewhere around Christmas 2025. And so then I say no. And so if you answer these 5 questions, then I will give you the rate, right? But if you don't know what load you're calling about, if your trailer, if you don't know what trailer you have, if you cannot legally haul the weight I posted in the notes, if you don't have an annual permit, and last but not least, if you're not gonna be able to pick this up when I need this to be picked up, I'm not gonna give you the rate. And I hope carriers and newbie brokers found this useful. So hopefully I will hear today from my carrier. Just let me double check here. Emails, no emails. But at least the shipper called me and he says, do you know if your carrier will need help setting up his trailer? Because you know some of these guys like RGN, they show up with a Jeep with a booster right on the deck. And so this guy asked me, he says, do we need to keep any forklifts or loaders ready to go? And he also gave me a layout of the land. He says, okay, here's the road close to our shop where the trucker can actually park for the night. There's no signs that prohibit parking, and he says in the end of the road he can turn around with the float. So it gave me some nice inside info, and I send all that. You see, I'm communicating, right? So I'm trying to help the carrier, and so I send the carrier all that info, and I said, are you okay loading tomorrow? And I said, will you be needing any assistance setting up your trailer? And that was sent at 11:04. It was like 3.5 hours ago, and I'm still waiting for an answer. So no answer from the carrier. I hope your RGN is okay to load tomorrow. So no answer. So I have no idea. Is he okay to load tomorrow? I don't know where his step deck is. If the guy drowned together with the ferry trying to cross into the mainland from Newfoundland. So no communication. Lack of communication, improper communication is the major reason of issues and tensions between brokers and carriers. Thanks for watching.